Good evening. Welcome to Monday night on September the 9th, 2024 on the Lightgate. We are coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans in Louisiana from the United Paranormal Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. I'm a little disgruntled today. There's a long story why. One of the reasons is that somebody we love very much in the world has taken his leave of us, and we're all going to discuss it later. We have a wonderful, my favorite guest ever tonight, and I'm just going to turn it right over to Preston. Here you go, Preston.
Thank you, Dolly. Thank you all for joining us on, I think this is episode 72 of the Lightgate. If I have that right, I think I do. And yeah, as you can see, we have Kathleen Marden with us. Hi, Kathleen.
Hello.
Hi, Kathleen.
Let me just do a quick introductions for you all. I'm Preston Dennett, of course, your host, and my lovely co-host is Dolly Safran, conscious contactee, subject of my book, Symmetry. I'll tell you all a little bit more about our guest in a second, but let me just say a quick hi to all you folks, because it's because of you we do this show. We're having so much fun. We've been doing it for well over a year now. Our numbers are growing fast. We're learning a lot and meeting all kinds of really interesting people. And let's see, who do we have here real quick? I promise I'll be quick, Dolly. We have Catherine Fourfeathers. Thank you for joining us. And we have Luke Shanahan. Check out his Facebook group, the UFO Files. It's one of the best out there. There's a lot of Facebook groups out there, and some are not that good, but the UFO Files is. And I really am glad to see you here, Luke. We have Mountain Dan and Kaj, who says, love Kathleen. We all do. Olivia, thanks for joining us. And UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials says, hi, Catherine. Well, that's close. Kathleen, Kathy. Glad you could join us. Okay. Oh, no, that's Catherine Fourfeathers. Okay. I get it.
They're talking back and forth already. Yep. We have chat and chat. Yep.
Janice Conant says, Kathleen, I'm reading the alien abduction files right now.
Great.
Interesting cases. Very cool. We have the Owl Man. We have Ruth Kleiber. We have Sunny Burnett. Always the bright spot on Monday. That is so very nice of you, Sunny. And Peak says, can't wait for another great show today. No more waiting. We are here. Joseph A., time for a slice of hot apple pie. Oh gosh, that sounds good. I actually have some peach pie waiting for me tomorrow morning. So pretty close. Okay. I'm going to put your question, Judith, on standby, but thank you for joining us. Louise Sogad, Kathleen is back on the Lightgate. Yes, this is her third appearance. We don't bring a lot of people back 3 times. So this is a huge honor.
A lot to talk about. That's right.
Okay, who else do we got here? Heidi, the lovely Heidi Hansen. Staying up very late all the way from Denmark. Heidi, we love you so much. Thank you so much for your very generous super chat. You're amazing.
Yeah.
We have Bambi Dudley. Blessings to both of you and Kathy. Michael Kennedy bringing the popcorn. Thank you, Michael. Hope you're doing well. Say hi to Kylie for me. We have Jen and Namaste. You are always so amazing. So thank you.
Yep.
Love you very much. We have Justin Sane.
Just like that name. Thank you.
We have Real Badger. Thank you, Real Badger. And Ratzy. I tried to send you a telepathic message. Did you receive? I'm not sure.
Somewhere in the middle of every other telepathic message I got during that particular show, yes. Okay. Or today even. Thank you.
Dog Lego Lover. Hello, good folk, all the way from Canberra. Aw, Jen, thank you. $10 donation. You guys, it means a lot. Dog's got a new microphone. Thanks to all of you guys and your generous donations. So we're happy about that. Real Badger. Hi, Kathleen. She's been a guest on the Paranormal View. Where haven't you been a guest?
Oh, no. Everything. That's right.
Susan Mack, looking forward to everything tonight. Luis Suarez. And we have Audrey Miller and Susan Lawrence and Mods Mayhem and CT Guitar Guy says, I met Miss Marden in New Hampshire. She is lovely. Yes, she is. Journey to the New Earth. We have Joy Simmons. Goodness, we have a big crowd today. Yay. Louis Molnar. What a great lineup tonight. Yes. Okay, we're already getting some. Yeah, guys, bring in your questions. Kathleen is very knowledgeable on the subject, one of the most knowledgeable in this field. So definitely get your questions in early and we will get to them. Hi, Scarlet Fire and Grandmaster. Oh, wow. Chat just absolutely loves you, Kathleen. Janice says, Kathleen is absolutely such an amazing lady. Her aura is amazing. I agree. Oh, Sandra, hello. We have Richard
Hello,
Minnick,
Sandra.
Jess and Friendy, and I'd better get started or I'm going to get in trouble because we've now passed the 15-minute mark. But I want to say thank you to Victoria. And, oh, this is a great question from Kidsy. I have to quickly mark this down before I lose it. Let me just say, dog logo lover, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, you guys, I am going to get in trouble if I don't get going now. One more thing. Everyone say hi to Trixie. Hi. She's on my lap. Okay, oh, and there she goes. Sorry, Trixie. All right. As you all probably know, Kathleen has been in this field for a very long time and has quite an impressive resume. But for those of you who are meeting her here for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about her. We're so excited to have her back for her third appearance on the Light Gate. I think there's only one or two people we've had back 3 times. So this is a huge honor for us.
For me
Just
too.
that clear. But tonight, Kathleen has talked about a bunch of things on the previous shows, including her research into her aunt's amazing experience, Betty and Barney Hill, the very famous landmark case. And we've talked about some of her own experiences as well. But tonight we're going to be talking about some of Kathleen's most interesting UFO cases. She's a very prolific and excellent researcher, and she's brought some cases for us. And if we have time, we're going to talk about the history and modus operandi of the UFO government cover-up and results of some UFO studies that she's been involved in, and just all kinds of fun stuff. So Kathleen Marden's interest in UFOs began way back in 1961 when her aunt and uncle Betty and Barney Hill had a close encounter with a UFO in New Hampshire's White Mountains. And as a family member, Kathleen had firsthand knowledge of this encounter on the day they arrived home. In fact, 2 days later, she visited the Hills' homes directly and has devoted years of research into the Hills' amazing experience. And she is really the go-to person on this whole case and has done an enormous amount of work. And you can, in fact, read about it in her book on this case, which she co-wrote with Stanton Friedman, who's amazing in his own right. It's called Captured, the Betty and Barney Hill Experience, which, as I just found out tonight, is far more accurate than John Fuller's book, which is, what was it called, Kathleen?
The Interrupted Journey.
That's right, The Interrupted Journey. So if you want to hear the real story, bypass that book, which is pretty good, I will say.
It was a good book.
But it's not accurate. Not as accurate as Captured, which has some really interesting tidbits in it that aren't in John Fuller's book.
Well, to speak up for John, he was an excellent writer, an excellent researcher, journalist. And I've, of course, been to his archival collection. And in the archival collection are letters between him and his publisher regarding this book. And the publisher said, unless you embellish this story, change this story, we're not going to publish it. So you will find tension in The Interrupted Journey, such as that incident where Betty and Barney stopped at a restaurant after they left Canada. They stopped in Colebrook, and it talks about people playing pool who were threatening, or Barney felt threatened by them. That never happened.
It's terrible.
That didn't happen. You know, it in The Interrupted Journey, Barney, when they had the close encounter with a craft, zoomed down toward the car and just hovered 100 feet above the road. John Fuller had Barney going to the trunk of his car to get out the tire iron. That didn't happen. Can you imagine doing that when a UFO was hovering above you?
Boy, that must have been really difficult for John Fuller to agree to that.
I know.
Wow.
There are things in there that seem ridiculous.
Well, that exact same thing happened with Fire in the Sky and Travis Walton, that
Right.
movie, with the whole onboard segment being completely fictionalized, which Tracy Torme did not want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Producer said, no,
sometimes your hands are tied.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad you got the true story out.
Yes.
But yeah, if you guys want to hear more about that, do check out our earlier show, because we have a lot of stuff to cover today. But Dolly, do you want to talk about who we lost today?
Yes. He's one of my favorite people ever. His name was James Earl Jones. His voice will go down in history. It is the most recognized voice in the world, I'm pretty sure. And he was 93 years old. And
Okay, Dolly, your sound is breaking out. Are you close to your
No.
microphone?
Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So he was 93 years old and he died peacefully at home in New York. Everything he did was golden. Everything he did. The life he led was golden. He was just a wonderful person and a human being and a humanitarian and an actor. And he never, ever, ever went against what he thought was right. And I always thought that was simply perfect for somebody to stand up for who he was and wanted you to know that, I know that he wrote a book about it and y'all should check it out because it's hard for people today. And the example is books are being changed by people who really have no right except for money and power to tell you what you have to do or how you have to be, not your truth. And I think the truth is the most important thing. And he stood up for that. So I'm sad and happy for him at the same time. So.
Yes, and he was, of course, the co-star of the UFO incident, which he did such an amazing job.
Yes.
Playing my uncle.
Yeah, as you pointed out, that movie wasn't quite accurate either.
No, it was based upon the book.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good movie.
It was very, very good.
All
He
right.
and Estelle Parsons did a good role.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure wondering because I heard rumors about another movie being made. I know we talked about that previously.
Right.
And I was hoping, I hope Kathleen's behind this and is this consultant. And no, which would be such a smart move if they did that.
Right.
So hopefully, fingers crossed, you never know.
But oftentimes the entertainment industry doesn't care about accuracy or the truth. They want something to entertain the public.
Yeah, they want to sensationalize people.
It's happened to me when I've gone on TV. I'm like, oh gosh, they were much more interested. And then make you do B-rolls, walking around the house and pretending to type.
Right, I know. You can spend 2 to 4 hours in interviews and B-roll, and you're on for 2 or 3 minutes, maybe.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, they've got to make money, but boy, if I was in control, it would be a different program. Just saying.
Doesn't make sense because the public wants to know the truth. They're hungry for it. And the truth is not that mundane. It really isn't. It's got its own appeal. And I wish that they would do the right thing and just tell the truth, you know?
All right, Kathleen. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight, and we've discussed before the show because we've already talked about your own experiences, and we've talked about the amazing research you've done into Betty and Barney Hill and all of your involvement in that. But you brought us, I mean, you've done so much research, and you've interviewed, I don't know how many people, probably.
You know, I don't count, but, you know, hundreds to thousands, I don't know, over the years.
Yeah, it's amazing. People have asked me how many. I'm like, well, you know, I don't know. But it's definitely in the hundreds. And as far as talking to people, absolutely in the thousands. So, and you're keeping so busy doing this. This is just endlessly fascinating, the subject. So much to explore. So I'm excited to hear about some of the more interesting cases that you've researched. You sent us some pictures and images that we can share.
Sure.
And I don't know if you want to just dive right into that, or if you want to.
I will. Let's do that.
All right. Well, let me show the first picture so we know where we're starting at. And for those of you who are on radio only, we will try to do our best to describe the images that we're looking at here.
And one of our listeners mentioned reading the alien abduction files. So this is Ed and Denise Stoner and their daughter, Dee Dee. Dee Dee was 12 years old when they had this experience. And Ed had been in the military. He was always doing everything military style. Denise worked for the National Park Service and was one of the people who set up a national park in Saudi Arabia and received an award for that. Ed's father was a doctor in Florida, or a prominent physician. And they had their little daughter, Dee Dee, and they would travel from Arvada, Colorado, where they lived, a suburb of Denver, in the summer, every weekend to Buena Vista. If you live in Colorado, they call it Buena Vista. But
Really?
So anyway, yes, a man corrected me on that one. So anyway, they were preparing for their weekend trip, and they had a trailer down there, a little travel trailer, and Denise's parents had a travel trailer there as well. And so they met every weekend during the summer, and they spent the weekend together. So they were always on time. Denise's mother would have dinner ready for them at a certain time. And they would leave their house at a certain time. They would fill the car with gas and they would be on their way. They'd always stop at the top of the 10,000-foot Kenosha Pass. And there's a little place where you can pull out there. I went there and investigated the case myself.
All right, here's a map of the
There's
area.
a map, yes, and keep that up, please. So here's Arvada, where they lived, and here's 10,000-foot Kenosha Pass, Route 285, where they were traveling, and here's Buena Vista, where they had their camping trailer at the Grace Acre Ranch. And so they stopped at the top of Kenosha Pass. Only Ed got out this time. He'd look out. It's so high you can see for miles. They'd have a little snack. And I said Ed was in the military. He was still doing everything military style. So their route was 137 miles long, and this happened on August 13, 1982. And I had met Denise back in 2009 when I moved to Florida because I wanted to attend a MUFON meeting, and she was holding MUFON meetings. She was the state's chief investigator and a state section director in line to become state director. eventually did become state director, and she was also my personal assistant on MUFON's experiencer research team. When I was the director. I was the director for 10 years. So anyway, this is not a MUFON case. This is a private case. Most of my cases are private cases. Early on, I did investigations through the Mutual UFO Network, but you get case after case after case, and it wasn't working for me because I discovered that I needed to establish a relationship with the people involved. And in order to be able to collect any kind of evidence, it has to be long-term. They have to be trying. They have to know how to do it. And so that's why I do private investigation.
I had the same exact reaction.
Yeah, the same
I worked
way.
with MUFON for 5 years or so, and I'm like, you know
Right.
what? I'm just because they become your close friends.
Yes,
Everyone you
absolutely.
interview.
Yes, and so this is a private case, and so they're at the top of Kenosha Pass, and they descend to the valley floor, South Park Valley. And pull up the next slide, please.
All right. Okay. Oh, did it not show up?
There it is. So they descended down from Kenosha Pass, and they passed the little town of Jefferson, and their odometer at that point read 74 miles. They had 63 miles to go. And so they are driving along. Ed's behind the wheel. As they're descending Kenosha Pass, they see two orbs, these lights in the sky, and they're moving erratically. And as they're driving along, entering the valley floor, Denise spots these orbs, and she speaks to Ed. And Ed does not hear her, apparently. His hands are gripping the steering wheel. He's staring straight ahead. And all of a sudden, she feels, and this is conscious recall, she feels the car start to lift off the road and move over a snow fence. And I have this wrong. It's not, Kenosha Pass is not in the background.
Oh, okay.
Kenosha Pass is up and toward the bottom. So you're just looking at the mountains here. But anyway, these two lights descend upon the car. The next thing Denise knows, they are out on the valley floor. Their car is stopped. And go to the next slide, please.
All right.
It was before 7 o'clock in the evening when they were there. But all of a sudden, they find themselves on Trout Creek Pass, which is 40 miles from their previous destination.
Yeah,
but
for those who can't see, because there are some people on radio, the image we're showing is Trout Creek Pass, right?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Trout Creek Pass.
Which shows a very lovely area. This is Colorado area? Is that right?
Yes. This is central Colorado.
Colorado's so beautiful. I could tell. Yeah. It's beautiful mountains and trees. Okay. Sorry, Kathleen.
So the trip odometer at that point read 74 miles. They were missing 40 miles. Their car was stopped, and the headlights were on, but Ed had not turned them on as far as he could remember. It was now dark. They were freezing cold. Ed was hyperventilating, disoriented, perplexed. Denise was stunned, shaken beyond words, and their daughter was asleep in the back seat.
Wow.
They just didn't know what to do. They were supposed to be at the campsite by 8 o'clock so that they could have dinner with Denise's family. And now it was close to 11 o'clock. And so they drove on to the campground, and they found Denise's parents and the family friend out walking. And they were on their way to the ranch house of the owner of this campground, days before the cell phones. And they were going to call the state patrol because they wondered if Ed and Denise had an accident or if the car had broken down. And so the parents were very upset, but relieved when Ed and Denise pulled up in their vehicle. And they just said, "Where have you been?" And so Ed and Denise
said,
said,
"It must be a real shocking experience to suddenly have missing time and you're trying to orient yourself like this."
Yes, you saw the orbs, you saw the craft, and Denise is a lifelong experiencer. I didn't know it at that time, but her events went back to age 3 as far as she could remember.
As they usually do.
Yeah, periodically, over and over and over again. And she is an intergenerational experiencer as well. And so let's finish with this, and I'll talk some more about Denise. So they ended up at the campground, and show the next. Do we have another slide of them?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. So this is where they found themselves, in the car when it was dark and cold, and they were so distressed. And then they drove up here to the campground, up at the top, the camp destination, and always 137 miles from their home, but the odometer read only 97 miles. They were missing 40 miles in about 3 hours time. So the family was, you know what they did? They wanted to know what happened to Ed and Denise. And they said, well, we saw this UFO, these UFOs, and then we don't know what happened. We found ourselves at the top of Trout Creek Pass. It doesn't register. And the parents started laughing. They started laughing. They thought that they were joking.
Huh?
And it took a while. And Ed and Denise obviously felt kind of traumatized. And the parents and friends soon believed that they were telling the truth. And so after I had met Denise in 2009, I was having lunch with her at her home. She had invited me over, and she had said to me, "You don't know this, but I'm an experiencer." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." So she told me. And I found out that her husband, Ed, always kept a diary too. So he could verify a lot of information. So I said, "May I investigate your case?" And she said, "Yes. And may I do hypnosis sessions with you?" And she said, "Yes." And so I did this very much the way that Dr. Simon did it with Betty and Barney, where I worked with Denise first and reinstated amnesia. And then I worked with Ed, and it was very interesting. And if you can bring up the next slide, I'll get into what happened. They found themselves with this very weird hour-shaped craft. And I was going, boy, that's weird. Is she confabulating? Talking about Denise, the shape of this craft. But I did find another case where this shape was reported. And Ed became disoriented and senses that his car has stopped. but he's feeling momentum. He sees swirling dust-like particles surrounding his car as if he's in a vortex. He hears a high-pitched pulsing whine and feels weightless, as if he's detached from his body. He's paralyzed, and his head is full of random spinning, analyzing thoughts. Ed ends up finding himself on this craft, and he's in a dome-shaped room, and he's lying on this table, and he's cold. The table was cold, and the room was not brightly lit. It was very dimly lit, and he was just lying there waiting and wondering what's happened to Denise, what's happened to their daughter. And the next thing he knew, from there, he was on Trout Creek Pass, and Ed decided that he did not want to be hypnotized again. He knew enough. He didn't want to know if he was examined on the craft or if he was only there to wait for Denise or to be educated or whatever might happen.
Is that a reaction you see often from people, or that they do it once and they're like, you know what, that's enough? Or would you say usually they want to
No, that is an unusual reaction. Most people want to go further, but Ed didn't. I mean, he doesn't come over very often anyway, and it's over an hour from their home to mine. And so, and their daughter Dee Dee is handicapped. They don't like to leave her alone. She has cerebral palsy and lives with them. And so he just decided not to come again. But he's doing okay with it. He's fine with it, with what he knows.
All right.
And let's move on, because the next is Denise. So this is Denise's sketch. You can see up in the top right-hand corner. And you can see the shape. You can see the orbs underneath. And underneath it, she saw a familiar gray ET. And this is her sketch of what it looked like in this area where he was standing. There were these three orbs, which we know turn into ETs when they hit the ground. They come into our environment.
Right.
And so she was taken, she was absorbed into this light, this portal. It wasn't shaped like that. It was more straight rather than cone-shaped. But let me quote from Denise's hypnosis. She said, "I'm in the valley under the plates. I feel funny. The lights can separate from the plates and they can stay in the sky. The lights come down to the ground. I'm supposed to go into the center of the lights. I was sucked in. And when I did, I felt like I was breaking up, like I was shattering is the only way I can describe it. And then a voice said, 'You'll be all right. We're going now.' So she finds herself standing in a hallway, not very brightly lit, and there are small grays lining the hallway. And she says, 'These are soldiers. They don't move unless they're instructed to move. They just stand there.' And we know that those are the escorts. They're the little ones who assist the others. They are, they make sure you don't get off the craft with anything that belongs to them. Like that book that was promised to my aunt, kind of not really a book, but more like a tablet. And she was not permitted to take it off. So they make sure that you get off. For most people, get off without being able to take anything home with them to prove that this happened. And so Denise is taken into the craft onto a table. She's in a separate room, not in with Ed. I find that happens when more than one person is taken
That
onto
was true with
craft.
Betty and Barney Hill, of
Yeah,
course.
pretty frequently it happens. They're taken to separate rooms. Sometimes a lot of people are taken to one large room too. But anyway, she was taken into a room. When she saw the ET standing in the doorway, she became extraordinarily distressed because he was a mantis type, and his appearance frightened her very much. So I believe that the next slide is him.
All right. Oh, yep.
There
we
he
are.
is. So this is what she was seeing. And she said his skin has a green tint, tan, in between all the bumps. It looks darker. It has a mottled look. His eyes are yellow. They have a black center and lines running through them. I can't see his mouth. He has 3 long fingers and a thumb. It doesn't work well. He uses it as pinchers a lot. His fingers are very long and his palm is small. He has an oddly jointed body. He appears to be skin and bones, and his joints look arthritic. They're bulbous. I didn't see
Wow.
his kneecaps. His head swiveled. She compared it to an owl, the way an
That's
owl's head
amazing.
swivels. But she was compelled to go in and get onto the table. They had an instrument, and they had an implant that they apparently wanted to insert into her foot. So they inserted it into her foot and up her leg a bit. Now we know that implants have intelligence, so that they can move anywhere that they want to go in the human body. In fact, another time when Denise was taken, we lived close enough so that she felt the implant moving. She was watching it, and so I was
That's got to be an
I was
experience.
I was
Wow.
able to palpate it. And she said she would go in and see if she could get an x-ray on it. But before she could get the x-ray, it simply disappeared. So
Yeah, I have other
she,
cases like that. I know that this happens.
oh yes, it does, certainly. And then they inserted a needle into her navel to remove ova. When they finished that, they were up by her eyes, and she saw another needle with what looked like a very small round ball. And so they did something up by her eyes. It could have been maybe a camera, maybe another implant. Who knows? But it was something that they wanted to use. Dolly probably knows what it is.
They don't implant into your eye actually, but they're scanning her retina when they do that.
Oh, is that what they were doing? Okay.
Her retina.
That's interesting to know. Dolly has all the answers. Thank you, Dolly. So
I had it done. It's like, oh, did she tell you she saw the inside of her eye when they did it?
no, she didn't.
Okay, you might ask her. Don't tell her what I said, but just say,
Okay.
did you see anything when they did that, and see what she said.
Did they speak to her at all while all of this was going on? Did she get
Yes, we're going to get to that.
any? Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. Here we go.
After her examination was completed, she was taken on a tour to the center of the craft.
Wow.
That's cool.
I guess I didn't put that picture in.
Well, let me see if I skipped it or something. We'll keep going. I'll see if I can find it, because maybe you did and I just didn't get to it.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see.
I'll check my emails.
Well, you asked about messages. Let's do that right now. She said there was an entity in the center of the craft that had brought them here. It's a biological entity. It's organic. It's alive. That's the way she felt about it. She said this biological material is deep within the energy system of the craft. The craft can deflect anything that is tossed at it. The ETs who come to Earth are a protective force of the universe. This began a long, long time ago when my life force was put together, she said. And the next slide should be another series of messages.
All right. Yeah, I'm not seeing the other image, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just tell you about it after I read this. She said, "We are a difficult species, so many mistakes. We can't continue the way we are. They're still monitoring us and taking DNA samples for various reasons. They're trying to factor in something that will work for both. They take our DNA for the preservation of our species and theirs. They're trying to combine the species and make a more survivable creature. We get to keep some of their experiments, babies that have been created, that are born to human mothers and grow up on this planet. They don't eat like we do. They eat through absorption. They have several different types, a gel for travel, a liquid for nourishment, and another for healing. It is a liquid, and they immerse themselves in it."
Oh, that must be like the accounts of what I call the breathing pool, where they put you in. Dolly has talked about that.
Yes, yes, I've been in that too.
Oh, really? Wow.
That's pretty cool. You get all your nourishment from it. You really do. Their stomach is growling and they really want something to eat. They have food on board that they can, supplement with,
Yes.
but it's mostly absorption in the pool. You got it.
And we can move to the next and see if it is the one I'm looking for, if you want.
I don't think it is.
No. So let's go back. And I'm just going to tell you what happened in the central core of that craft. A little bit more information. Denise described it as being sort of like a catwalk, spongy, that she walked on, and that she could see black and red running underneath it. And then ahead of her, she saw what seemed like a lotus. And there was this intelligence in there. And she received this information from that intelligence. And Denise felt so bad for this intelligence that was trapped here. And the intelligence said, "Don't feel bad for me. I volunteered for this.
That's right.
I don't have to do this." And,
Wow.
so
Show me emitters. They look like lotuses, living lotus. Yep.
Yes.
That's what an emitter is. Looks like. Absolutely. She described it really, really
When you
well.
say emitter, Dolly, what do you mean exactly? For people?
Graviton wave emitter, and there are 3 of them on the smaller craft. There are 3 of them up top and 2 below. And where the central core is, it goes up, and she would have seen circulation of energy going through it. That's the black and the red. And they go up into the lotuses, and it is a graviton wave, and it's generated from their nuclear device that has electricity that's so high amounts of it that it produces that graviton wave. And it is alive. The craft is alive. And she may have got that craft on a weird day. They don't usually emote like that to people. And apparently it liked her. I got a funny feeling that knew her more than she knew it. Okay. Because
I think they've had a long-term relationship with her.
Very much so. I'm sitting here like, that they don't talk to people like that. Only those that they're close to.
Yes.
And you
So
might have been
the experience that really woke Denise up, because people are having this their whole life, and sometimes they just kind of shelve it or explain it away. You know what I mean? Is this her paramount experience, kind of? You know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. And the reason I began this investigation is because it was so much like my aunt and uncle's case, and I did so many hypnosis sessions with her over the years. Whenever she was taken again to craft, and there's quite a bit of it in the alien abduction files, but that more has happened since that time. But something that you talked about, the graviton wave inside. Well, Denise was in there, and all of a sudden she started to act like she was being hit by some kind of wave. It reminded me of like somebody was there throwing bean bags, and so her one shoulder would jump,
Yeah,
and then
you get
another would jump.
electrostatically shocked in there. You have
Yes.
to constantly ground when you're on board. And I'm real careful to make sure that I hit grounding pads. And if you miss them, beep, 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 you get shocked. You feel like you're being
Yes.
polarized by electricity.
Wow.
And it's like a
Yeah.
beanbag hitting you. It's
Yeah.
very nasty, as a matter
I
of fact.
interviewed one guy who was
Yeah.
in Idaho, I think it was.
Yeah.
And he was in the craft when they came down over the telephone wires and were scooping up electricity. And they showed him how they were doing that.
Yeah, they're
And he
charging
could
their
feel it.
batteries.
He described the same thing. He says, I could actually feel this.
Yeah, they
It
have
wasn't
huge
painful, but
batteries.
you could feel it.
Okay, and when they're in atmosphere, they're on batteries only. They're not using the nuclear at all because it's too much radiation. Nobody could take it. You don't want to be here for that. Okay, so if they're here for a long time, they'll recharge on, any electrical resource they can grab. So yeah, that's
Wow.
amazing. That's amazing.
One
So they
thing real
took her-
quick, Kathleen, how tall was the mantid being?
The mantis was at least 6 feet tall, maybe taller.
Wow.
Yeah, it was young. It was young. That's why it was so skinny. That's
Mm.
the young man, what you call mantids. They have a different name, but yeah.
What
He
do
was
you
young.
call them?
I'm not allowed to say. I am not allowed to say. I'm
You're
only
not
allowed to
to say.
give anybody one name, and that's it's because it's related to the people on this planet who are native.
Mhm.
The Stark people on this planet, and they come from the Orion section. The Orion clusters, and here's Orion's belt, and it's the belt on the star on the right, and then down from that, they call that Orion too. All the astronomers here, and it's in that system, and they call it Enneoma.
Oh.
And if you're native here or indigenous, they have Enneoma or Enneoma, okay? And it's short for Enneoma, and it literally means the people. They are the people. Like we're all people too. We are the people. And when I was young and I heard that, I used to think Earth should be called that too. I had a hard time as a young child. Why is this Earth? And they say, because it's the Earth. There's Earth on the Earth. You stand and walk around on it. And so the people are on the Earth. And that's how they make the distinction. I'm like, okay, fine. That makes sense to me. Go ahead. And, but mantids are not from the Orion system at all. They're from way, way out this galaxy. They're from another galaxy entirely. And when they're young, they look like little spindly, jerky, weird looking guys. Okay. They're young. And the older they get, the taller they get. They're like, what you would call a Nordic. They grow. Yeah. Within their lifetime. They have a long extended lifetime.
John Schaefer says mine was 8 to 9 feet tall.
That was an older one. Yeah. And they fill in a little bit, as they go. But they're very spindly looking. Yeah.
When Denise was a child and she was taken, she used to call him the oil can man.
Yeah.
For some reason, he reminded her of the oil can man. And one time she was taken, and when she was returned home, her pajama bottoms were soaking wet and really cold around the bottom.
Wow.
That's interesting. Sometimes things happen. I didn't always get to come home in what I wore when I got on. It's simply, I don't know. They just don't care what, your clothes go somewhere while you're on board. You wear something else.
Right.
You're decontaminated. Okay. Completely decontaminated to be on board with them. And sometimes they put them on inside out and backwards. Sometimes they mismatch you. You come home with a purple sock and a green sock, different things. I mean, it's challenging for them to help you get your clothes back. So.
Sometimes in somebody else's clothing. Even I read about I think it was one of Bud Hopkins' cases where the earrings were put in backwards.
Yeah. Go figure. I know.
And sometimes they forget to give you your jewelry and they return it later.
Yeah, like Betty Hill had that.
Betty Hill and Mona Strafford and
oh, that's right.
That's
right.
Yeah, I'm trying to Elaine Thomas.
Yvonne Smith had a case like that too.
Yes.
The lady I talked to. She's like, "Where's my ring?" It was back on her dresser like several months later. They just put it there.
Yeah, I used to get presents too. I like marbles, natural marbles. Okay. And I had quite the collection. They would leave me a marble every now and then, on my dresser or on the side of my pillow. When I woke up, it would roll back up on me, and I had every kind of marble you could possibly imagine. And
Such
they
a shame that you don't have those anymore.
They disappeared.
So did Denise think that this was overall a positive experience for her, and for that matter, Ed?
Sort of neutral. It took her a long time to look at it more positively, because this was early on in her life. She was in her early 20s.
Wow.
Well, I have a real serious question to ask you about her. What kind of things was she interested in life? Where did her intelligence lead her to discover things and learn about things? What was she into?
Early in life?
All her life. I mean,
all of her life.
Biggies, yeah.
Well, she's a very curious person. She has studied all kinds of religions.
Okay. There you go. All right.
Very much into Scotland. When she grew up in Connecticut, they lived with her grandparents. The family lived together, and her Scottish grandparents were quite entertaining, especially the grandfather, who was the caretaker at this huge mansion, and they would go and stay there in the summers when he was working, and then they would go to their own house. I've met other people, a couple who remembered being taken to craft or on craft when Denise was brought to craft when she was a child.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
Which was very interesting. And I found out from Denise's mother and from Denise that her parents were getting ready to go to bed one night, and they looked out the window and they thought there was a plane coming in and it was going to crash into their bedroom. And the next thing they knew, they were waking up in bed, and they hadn't even been in bed. So, it's just
amazing.
Case after case, time after time.
Of education from them. They start when we're young, and her interest in different religions mirrors me in some ways. I was obsessed with it. I wanted to know every religion on the earth. I wanted to know everything about it. I was trying to make up my mind about certain types of philosophy and morality that they were teaching me, and I was comparing and contrasting with the religions on earth. I was trying to find foundations for us here, why this was all going on like this. And I came to a bunch of conclusions about it. I bet she has too. So,
it's a very interesting pattern with contactees, because looking back at myself, I, at a very young age, I'm 7 years old, obsessed with disasters of all kinds. My parents were like, why are you buying so many books on shipwrecks and earthquakes and hurricanes? I'm like, I don't know. I have no idea. Which was followed, of course, by a super strong interest in the solar system. So, yeah, you see these seeking sort of personality with contactees.
Yes. And Denise is very interested in crystals. She's been very interested in psychic phenomena. She's had a lot of paranormal type phenomena in her home, orbs, things disappearing and then being returned.
Oh, yeah. That's a thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. Well, I need to take a quick station ID break. I know you've got a couple of more amazing cases. We got a whole list of really fun questions for you, Kathleen.
Okay.
So I want to get to them at some point, but let me just take a quick station ID break and let you, hold on a second. Let me pull up the banner there. So yeah, you are all watching The Light Gate. I'm your host, Preston Dennett. My lovely co-host is Dolly Saffron. This is episode 72 with Kathleen Marden. This is the third appearance she's had on The Light Gate. We're so honored. Previous appearances, she talked about her research into her aunt and uncle, Betty and Barney Hill, and all the amazing research she's done with that. Check out the book Captured. And in her second appearance, she talked a lot about her own experiences. But tonight, we are diving, because she's got so much information. We're going to have you back on again, Kathleen.
I want to come on. I have another case that I want to share with you.
Oh boy. Okay.
But tonight we're talking about some of Kathleen's more interesting cases, and there's a lot of them. These are in her book, The Alien Abduction Files. And we just talked about Ed and Denise Stoner and their amazing encounter in Colorado. She's got a couple of other cases she wants to share with us. We will get to your questions. And if we have time, there's more to talk about as well. All right,
Yes.
There we go.
And I want to say that I put 6 cases into the alien abduction file, 6 cases I investigated. But the cases that I'm going to discuss next are from my book, Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted.
Oh, cool.
Cool. I like that. Okay.
Is this the one with Matt, the pseudonym?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the Jim too.
All right. I have some of the pictures you sent to us. So whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
I'm ready. Let's move on.
Okay. Should I pull up the picture? Or
Yeah.
do you want
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here we go.
It was about 2011, 2012 when MUFON asked me to investigate a case in Canada, up in Winnipeg. And so I said, okay, this was not an abduction case or contact case that I knew of at the time. It was just a close encounter with a craft by an amateur astronomer who was outside looking at the sky at night. And the craft came in closer. And then we remained in touch, as I always do when I have a case that seems that it's interesting. He started sending me a lot of photographs. And first, he woke up with this Y-shaped wound on his head. This was in 2013, after I'd been working with him, I think, for a couple of years. Discovered it at 6 a.m. There was no blood on his pillow, he said, but there was this wound on top of his head. He always felt kind of nauseated and completely exhausted when he was taken and returned. So Denise Stoner had a wound like this kind of Y-shaped wound on the top of her head after one experience that I wrote about in the Alien Abduction Files when she and Ed were cave divers. And it was something that happened during...
Cave diving. Wow.
They were up for a cave diving trip in north, sort of central western Florida. And Denise was taken, not Ed that time. He was put sort of into a state of suspended animation. But it's all in my book. I won't get into that. Let's get into Jim's case. So he would send me just a lot of photographs in his yard. In one of those, there was like a beam. He had a lot of photographs of beams that would be coming down and hitting the ground. And so one time I decided, I always put it in my photo program. I know that a lot of researchers think that you should not enhance a photograph in any way. You should never see anything except for it the way it came to you. And, Jim's wound is exactly the way it came to me. But if you're going to see things inside the beams, sometimes you have to magnify it or do something so that you could see if there's something in that beam. And we actually saw, Denise and I would look at these together. She's a very good photo analyst, and because she was MUFON's chief investigator. And we actually saw little people inside that beam. That was amazing.
Wow.
He sent photographs of what looked like entities standing on the roof of his garage. He would sense that these craft were coming in, and he'd always have his camera ready. So he was one of those people who knew in advance when he was going to have a visitation. And so,
You have some of the pictures?
pardon me?
Do you have some of the pictures?
I have some more pictures that I'm going to show if you want to. I didn't include many, but
some are in the book, I hope.
there are some in the book, but the others I don't show because they're not that clear.
Right.
And someone will just say it's pareidolia, you know, that kind of thing. But they certainly look like entities. So let's move on to the next slide, Jim's slide. So one time he's taken, I'm collecting evidence here, and he has bilateral bruises on both arms. Again, he's energy drained, he's sore. And so you can see here where the bruises are. Bruises on both arms. He thought he must have been struggling. He didn't remember, and he could not be hypnotized. I never attempted to hypnotize him, but somebody up in Winnipeg did, and he wasn't able to be hypnotized.
Now, is Jim the guy? I spoke to him, and I'm not sure if I'm remembering this correctly, but didn't he wake up once with burns on his eyes where the doctor said, "Were you exposed to a welder?" I think that was him as a young child.
I don't remember that, but that doesn't mean anything because I've had post-COVID syndrome, and that affected my memory, unfortunately. So I used to have full memory of almost everything. I'm getting it back. But I don't remember the welder's eyes. Maybe it was the same.
I'm pretty sure that was him because I did speak with him. He was very open. I mean, he told his doctors all about this as well. He's like, "This is what happened to me." People are sometimes not forthcoming with their medical professionals about what's going on with them. But I believe he was.
Yes, Jim was. He would talk to his family physician. He didn't. We'll get into surgery he had. But his family physician was a person that he could confide in. He believed him. In fact, Jim found an implant, and it was about here on his arm. And he went to his family physician, and he had that removed. And if you want to move to the next slide.
All right.
I had him send this to the Mutual UFO Network. I had to go through the protocols of getting it approved. So here's the vial of blood. There was a small sphere.
We see it
in the vial. And so it was packed in dry ice. It was sent to MUFON headquarters in California at that time. And then it was sent to the scientist in Ohio. So by the time it arrived at the scientist's laboratory, it was missing. It appears that it dissolved. And I, shortly after that, heard from one of MUFON's state directors what she should do because this implant was dissolving in front of her eyes and she was trying to rush it to a laboratory before it dissolved.
Yeah, so, I pulled out one of my implants. I had a nasal implant and it was driving me crazy. And being a nurse, I have access to scalpels. And I went up and pushed it all the way out and it hit my hand and I laid it on a plate and I watched it. It did something weird. It was metallic. And the next thing I know, it's all white and a little spiky. And then it disintegrated in front of my eyes.
Now, there's a lot of cases like that. People put it in an envelope. It's gone from the envelope. One guy put it in a little Tupperware container next to his dresser. It was gone the next day. So I don't know if they're taking it or if it's dissolving or what's going on
They're
here.
dissolving. They're made to do that.
Wow.
Once the air hits it, it's compromised in it. As long as it remains in the blood or the tissue that you're extract, like if you extract some of the tissue with it and keep it in the tissue, in the blood, out of the air, and you make sure that that blood doesn't compromise by losing oxygenation to it. It's a whole process. You have to almost simulate the inside of the body to keep it where you can look at it. If you can't do that, you're going to lose it. It's going to, unless it's solid metal, and they're different. They don't disintegrate, but they stop doing whatever it is that they do, So.
Right. It's unfortunate. And I have to tell you that after he had it removed, he got in touch with me and he said, Kathy, what am I going to do? I miss them. I want to see them again. I'm so sorry that I had this implant removed. And so I just said to him, Jim, don't worry. Don't worry. They'll find you. You'll have another one.
It's not the implant that they find you by anyway. So
right. It's not. That's a communication device.
Among other things, yeah.
Yes, among other things. Test the health of your body, that sort of thing too.
Yep. All right. So I have another slide. Should I bring that up?
Yes, please do that.
Okay.
So there was a sudden increase in paranormal activity in Jim's house. And he informed me of this in 2014, glowing orbs in his bedroom that would pass through the wall. The sensation that something unseen was walking on his bed. Both of those things are very, very common in the homes of experiencers. One time, large scratches across his chest and just feeling weak. One time, the faucet for the garden hose mysteriously turned on and flooded the yard. And he said there are no children in his neighborhood. So I don't know what that was. And
psychokinetic activity, probably.
Could be.
Irina Scott talked about that. She had an experience, comes home and dong, 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 things are flying off the shelves.
Yes.
I think what happens is your own bioelectric field becomes somewhat activated, energized, increased.
Mm-hmm. That happened in my childhood home. And also one time Denise and I together were taken, and another time, the time we were taken one day apart, I think it was.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Well, anyway, let me tell you that we registered on a tri-field meter. We had a very powerful electrical electromagnetic frequency around our bodies, as much as 12 feet away from the tri-field meter.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. Boy,
that's
we were
very interesting.
Really radiating magnetic field. Electromagnetic. Okay. So all of these things in Jim's house, and that feeling that something unseen is walking on the bed happened in my mother's house. My husband and I were staying with my mother, and she had the only full-size bed in the house. So she said, I'll sleep in a twin-size bed and you can have my bed. And so we thought that a cat had jumped on the bed. Mm-hmm. And I was feeling around for the cat. I couldn't find the cat. We turned on the light. We're looking underneath the bed. The light's on and I can still feel this movement on the bed, but we couldn't see anything. It just seemed to have weight, but
I had that same
you
experience.
could feel it pressing down.
You thought it was a cat too. Yeah.
And is that a cat walking across my bed? It woke me up.
There was no cat in the room. We looked under the bed. We looked everywhere. No cat.
I didn't have a cat.
Nothing. Yeah.
My mother did, and I mentioned it to her the next day, and she said, "Oh, I meant to tell you about that."
Wow.
There was no cat.
Very
So,
interesting.
yes, very interesting. We can go on.
So,
Jim, unfortunately, got in touch with me one time, and he had been diagnosed with lymphoma.
all right, here's a picture.
And there's a photograph of
Oh
this
boy.
large
Yeah.
tumor on his neck. This was in 2015.
Yep.
And, I said to him, he said, "I'm afraid I'm going to die from this." And he was going to go before a medical team. He did do that. I have the paperwork from it, but I do not show that. And that's just part of my investigative files. And I've had a medical doctor look at it and verify it. And a medical doctor has all of his records pertaining to this. But I said, "Jim, you can be healed. There's this possibility. So don't give up hope." I said, when you rest or when you meditate, send telepathic messages to your ETs and ask them to please heal you. And I said, and I'll do the same for you. So a couple of weeks later, I receive a video from Jim. And it's a video of an orb that is sliding down from the ceiling in his bedroom, down the closet wall, and then it flies like a butterfly across the room, is over his body very briefly, puts down like little, I don't know, maybe it's just the motion of it, or maybe it just put down little tendrils, but it dove down into his body. And if you could bring up the next slide, I didn't know if you could play video, so I just took a couple of photographs. You see this beautiful baby blue, and it had sort of an ecru colored center. And it was morphing as it was flying through the air. You can see this beautiful kind of turquoise around here, and these sort of iridescent, in a sense, beams that shoot down. It enters his body, and he immediately falls asleep. He wakes up 12 hours later, and there is no evidence of any swelling on his neck at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was amazing. He did go in for the surgery. Anyway, he did not feel that he could tell the surgical team that this had happened to him, that he had asked the ETs to heal him when they came and healed him, I'm sure through this orb.
Amazing.
So the surgical team removed 4 tiny necrotic nodes that were not cancerous at that point from his neck. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
So he was healed.
I remember Jim told me he once put on his phone on voice activation when he went to bed, and it turned on, and he caught a 10 or 15 second audio tape of the ETs coming. He could hear them.
Yes, I heard.
Talking.
He sent that to me too.
Oh, okay.
And that color, kind of a purplish, bluish color that's always associated with their presence. He also sent me photographs of that color in his room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, there's not a lot of contactees who are able to capture really good evidence of their experiences. It's often just anecdotal, but boy, a lot do. I know Dolly has. She's been fortunate that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Jim as well. Yeah. Amazing.
I was taught I grew up knowing how to remote view. And I didn't know this until I was much older. When I'm remote viewing you, I come off as a blue orb. Seriously, a blue orb. I look like a blue orb. And an associate of mine at our Georgia CE5 group, I couldn't be there that time. I was in Florida and they were in Georgia, and they were at a private home having their meeting. And I said, well, I'm going to remote view. And he said, well, let me know, and I said, I can't let you know, I'm going to be remote viewing. He said, well, you're going to come now? And I said, sure, I'll come now. And he said, okay. He was dead up waiting for me. He said, we're in the living room where the fireplace is. I said, okay. So I found the room and I'm in there, and all of a sudden I see him jumping up and down like crazy. Okay. I'm like, why is he jumping up and down? And the next thing I know, my phone's ringing. He's desperately for me to answer. So I answered my phone. He said, Dolly, I got you on film. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, you're a blue orb. And they had me in front of the fireplace, and then near the door, they saw me come in through the wall, and they got like 15 pictures of me in succession moving through the house. Mm-hmm. And he said, can you do it again and we'll all watch? And I'm like, oh my God. So I did it one more time for him, and they all saw me. And he said, this time you look like a blue and white butterfly shape, I said, that was probably it, because you
makes you wonder about the many orbs people see.
Oh,
sometimes
absolutely.
they're ETs, sometimes they're spirits.
When you said the butterfly, I was like, yeah, I do that. So, yeah.
So amazing. I have another image you sent me of a non-human in the doorway. Is that Jim's as well?
It is.
Ooh, I want to see this one.
All right, I'll pull that up right now, because this one looks amazing.
See, Jim sent me the photograph on the left. He said he sensed that something was coming into his room. And so the light was off. He just shot a photograph of it, and couldn't see very much. But then I put it into my photo program again and played around with it. I didn't change it at all, only put color and lightened it up.
No, I see it. So here it is, right here, down
yes.
here. This
yeah,
is it,
you can see the eye right there, and then you see this right here, and it looks so different than a gray to me.
You can see this looks like an eye, right?
If it's a non-AI gray, they all have different faces like we do.
Yeah.
Okay, they have different bone structures, same configuration like we do, but some of them have higher cheekbones than others. Some of them have more narrow face. They're individuals,
Yeah,
and
right.
Like an individual, somebody. Yep.
You can see either a pointed ear next to what looks like either a hat or a rounded head with a brow ridge.
Yeah, he has a brow ridge. They all do. And he probably has pointed ears. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can see underneath it what might be technology.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You can see what looks like his arm below that and a little hand.
Yep.
And you can see what an opening that might be a mouth.
A little bit below his nose. He has a nose.
Yes.
They're slightly interdimensional when they're coming in,
Mm-hmm.
And a photograph of them like that would get them, they're slightly distorted looking,
Yeah.
So it's not 100% correct, but it is. Yeah, I believe this one. This looks like one. Yep.
Yeah, in fact, I wondered, was this an elf or was this actually an ET? But a lot of people told me that they believe that it was an ET.
Yeah, it's a gray,
and
he looks like he's like, what am I looking at? He'll probably look at you around objects and stuff like that to see if you're looking at them.
There's so many cases of that where they peek around the door.
Right. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
very
cool.
Interesting.
So, an incredible case, and Jim was so grounded at the same time, very well liked. He was, as I said, an amateur astronomer and sort of a master beer brewer. He was known for that too, but he wasn't a drunk. It was just something he did as a hobby and shared with people.
It's amazing.
All right. Well, we have a half hour left. I do want to get to the questions, but we do have another case too. Do you want to go through that one, or want to answer some questions?
Yes.
If you think we have time, I can shorten this next one. Why don't I just make it short so we have time? So why don't we go to the next case?
All right. The Texas airport case.
Yes, from 2010 to 2016. And I called this person Matt. He was a commercial pilot who had a 4-year degree in aviation and had retired and was renting this small airport and living on the property. He and his wife were going to build a home there. Had never thought much about UFOs, but one night he heard some people outside the hangar. And so he went outside to see if there were kids out there vandalizing something. It wasn't kids, it was adults. And they were pointing at 2 very bright lights in the sky. And Matt said that these were the brightest lights that he had ever seen, that they were definitely not conventional craft. And he became fascinated with it. And so he knew nothing about UFOs or ETs, but he hatched a plan where he was going to use large laser lights to try to call them in. And he eventually succeeded. Well, since he had very little knowledge of them, he thought that they were all going to sit down at a table together and talk with one another. That's not what happened. Let's move to the next slide. He set up cameras everywhere. He believed that this was a craft. Now, people who have looked at it, have analyzed it, some have said, yes, they believe it actually was. Look at these colors. Others have said, no, it's just a plane, or no, it's a truck. I don't know how they could construe that to be a truck, but anyway, that was something that he captured on camera.
Very interesting. Cameras rarely do things justice anyway.
Right. So anyway, we can move on to the next slide.
All right. Now here we go.
Okay, November 2010. He is on the telephone with with a relative who works overseas, and he's standing. There's a window in the door looking down into the hangar. So he's looking down into the hangar, and he sees this 6-foot tall entity with horizontal eyes that have lids, tan color skin, face not exactly as sketched, and it was not wearing any clothing. Then there were 3.5 to 4 foot tall, like white skin that glowed entities that, were sort of like grays in a sense. When they saw him, they all moved in unison. He compared it to a gate opening.
I've heard this sort of thing before. That's so interesting.
Yeah, they were wearing silver jumpsuits with what he said looked to him like little roper boots.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the next thing he knew, he was waking up in the morning.
Wow.
So he started having regular visits. After that, one time he found himself dressed only in his jockey shorts, no shoes, about a mile away from the airport, and had to walk home in the middle of the night, dressed that way. He decided that he really did not want to have a relationship with these entities. And so he decided to become violent. Yes, bad decision. He started shooting at them. And it was not good for him.
No.
He ended up being harmed, being scratched. He ended up actually handcuffing himself to bedposts. His wife had left at that point. She couldn't take it any longer.
Oh, wow.
And he put boards over the bedroom windows, handcuffed himself, And that worked for a little while, but then he was taken, even though he was handcuffed.
Yeah, I know someone whose mom tied her son up to the bed to stop him from being taken.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't work.
Doesn't
She
work.
woke up.
Mm.
It was all untied. She's like, "How did you untie yourself?" She's like, "Mom, I didn't." I keep telling you.
Yeah. I mean, if they want.
At
They
any
want
time during this, at any time during this, did the U.S. government get involved in any way? Were they being monitored in any way by?
I don't know, but this was a case that was similar to the Skinwalker Ranch. There was a lot going on there. He wasn't aware, or he did not tell me. He came to me after he'd been to UFO investigators. One investigator went out and actually saw a craft at close encounter. And then the paranormal came in, and it was like, okay, this is no longer a UFO case. This is paranormal. The paranormal people came in, and it was, next thing you know, this is a paranormal case. It's not a UFO case. They were both. They're all so often both. I shouldn't always
Pretty much
say
always. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yes. And one
Can I
night,
tell you a secret? I know about this
go
case.
right ahead. Yeah.
Isn't it? I know about this case. I personally know about this case. This was talked about among ETs. This guy's legit. He really was being visited by them. And when he decided he didn't want it anymore and he started to become violent, they were trying to figure out why. Okay. And he was being influenced by a government agency. Well, I'm not going to use the name. And they were mentally attacking him over it.
Oh.
He was being surrounded by them, and he was being tortured and debunked by them because this is legit. They didn't want it to come out as a real case. And ET was trying to decide whether to back out now or keep working with them because he's the one that asked for it.
Mhm.
You know, and to them, it's like, if you ask for it, you got it. Toyota, you know, they're going to watch you for a while, as long as they can. And it's a big mishmash of conflicting forces, all with this guy in the middle. That's what I learned about it.
Yeah, it was really sad. I know.
Yeah.
I did speak with his best friend, who was a retired state trooper.
Yeah,
He
knew about it.
He was connected.
I know he knew about it. He saw him.
And he
did.
saw them. Yes, he
Yeah.
talked to me about that. And one time, the Matt and his mother, the family had a family meeting, and they wanted him to get psychiatric help because they didn't believe him. So he said, "Stay here with me and I'll prove this to you." His mother stayed with him, and they looked out onto the runway, and what they saw was a grassy savanna with mammoths grazing.
Oh boy, yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, one time. I mean, a really weird activity. I wrote about it in Extraterrestrial Contact. There's a lot of information in there, but you know, I'm not sure if I have another photograph to show or not. I do, come to think of it.
Right.
He tried everything. He turned to all different religions.
Wow.
To stop this. And his camera caught this inside his house. He believed that this was an angel saving him from this evil being that was right here. You can see an eye there, I guess, another one here, and a light being.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Again, not sure the photograph does it justice because it's hard to really tell what we're looking at. But
Right. It
certainly
is
very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
No, he was definitely legit. You can tell him I said so. I know he is, because I've heard about it from ET. They talk about it.
Unfortunately, he has passed away from blood cancer.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yes. Yeah. He was a very nice individual. But when he was violent, one of them he was sleeping with an AK-47 underneath his pillow. I guess that's what it was. Maybe I'm wrong. But one came into his bedroom, and before he became paralyzed, he shot it. and it disappeared in a blue flash of light, but it left
Hmm.
some yellow something on the floor.
Wow.
But he didn't collect it. And this happened long before he contacted me. He'd just seen me on television and contacted me. And at the time, I was super busy. I just published a book. I was promoting it. I couldn't talk to him. Finally, I was able to talk to him, and I was wishing that I had been able to earlier. And time had passed.
I will tell you, when a government agency decides to mess with you when you have this going on and they want to try to drive you crazy or go even further than that, this kind of thing can happen. He's example A of what can
Yes.
happen. Yeah.
He left everything. He lost
Yeah.
everything. He just moved away to get away from this.
Yep.
Yeah. These
Moved in with
experiences
his
can be
mother.
very disruptive sometimes.
They
Yeah.
can be. So I'm showing you different types of cases. They're not all the same. Human reactions are different, and you get different treatment depending upon your reaction. And that's why I always advise people, whether you can really feel it or not, project love, because you will be treated much better if you project love toward
Right.
them.
Which is true in all situations, I think, in life in general.
Yes.
All right. How about we get to some questions? Because there are
Sure.
some good ones here.
Absolutely.
Here's one from C, who's asking, are there kid aliens?
I'm told there are. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That seems totally logical to me. Okay.
And I hope so. No offense.
Now, here's a question from Judith, and this is directed to me, but I think this is pertinent here. Could you please confirm if I am a contactee? Now, there are signs and things a checklist you can go down, right, Kathleen, to sort of determine if you're a contactee? Like, what would be some of the clues you look for?
I always advise people to keep a journal, first of all.
Perfect.
Check your body out, put your memories down, the date, everything that you remember, all the details. Check your body out. See if there are any highly unusual marks on your body, any patterned marks. If there are, photograph them, keep them in your own little file. Go into a dark room, use black light. You can get a little flashlight that is UV light, and check to see if you have fluorescence on maybe your arms or your legs.
Body.
Yeah, there are parts of your body where you could have fluorescence that is just yeast, but I'm talking about patterned fluorescence.
Right, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, there's a
yeast or
bunch
oil,
of things you can look.
that.
Check out Kathleen's book on what to do if you're contacted. There's clues in there as well.
Yeah.
But if you've had a close-up encounter with a UFO, missing time, marks on your body, unexplained healings, insomnia,
dreams.
Yeah.
Judith, if you want to reach out to me by email, there's my email, prestonufo@gmail.com. I can, we can go through this. But yeah, there's all sorts of little signs you can look at.
Okay.
Extraterrestrial Contact, What to Do When You've Been Abducted, is a book that I wrote specifically for experiencers who are processing what they're going through. Tells how to collect evidence, what kind of instruments you can purchase if you want to use to investigate your own experiences.
Right.
That's such an important book, Kathleen, because there's nothing out there like this.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great idea and so important because so many people are having these experiences. It's far more common.
Google UFO investigators. Just do that, and if you find one in your area, give them a call, or send email to Preston or Kathleen.
Would you say this is more common than people in the general public realize, Kathleen?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
So. Okay, here is another interesting question from Janice Conant, which I've heard, but I don't know that I've run across this. She's asking, do other experiencers also crave salt? I have ever since I was a kid, even to drinking pickle and olive juice.
Well, in the first study that Denise Stoner and I did, the Marden Stoner experiencer, I think we said abduction experiencer questionnaire, maybe it was, back in 2013. And that was one thing we learned, is that the majority of experiencers craved salt. So I wrote about it, and you can go onto my website, Kathleen-Marden.com, look under essays, and I have an article. You're going to read that entire survey and an explanation for why you might crave salt after an experience.
Because it's full of iodine. And
I did go through a period of time where I was craving salt.
Yeah. The iodine in the salt relieves symptoms of radiation exposure.
Oh.
So that's number one right off the bat. That I know for a fact you're craving iodine. And you'll even go for iodine-rich foods, for that matter, like spinach, kale, seaweed, weird stuff, toothpaste, because it's got seaweed in it. Some kids I've heard will lick the tube and stuff like that. It's really weird. Or they'll put salt on their body and then lick it off. That kind of thing. That's how much.
Well, that was out with some people who have pica, who are actually craving certain minerals. Pica being, eating things that aren't food.
Yeah.
Okay. Some great questions here. Here's one from Michael Kennedy, and we touched on implants, but he's asking, can you talk about any implants? And also, did Betty and Barney Hill have a bag of fertilizer in their trunk?
Okay. Well, implants, there's a lot of information about implants, and it would take me the rest of the time here to talk about them. But they've been, because Dr. Roger Lear used to have them removed, and Daryl Sims is another individual. Some of them had isotopic ratios not found on our planet. One of them could communicate or send radio. I can't remember.
Waves, yeah.
A microwave, I guess, radio microwave into deep space. And this went on for a period of time, and then it just stopped working. So they're very interesting.
I have a question for you, a specific question. Lear went to Turkey when the UFO that was coming for 3 years in a row. Did he bring an implant with him there and see how it would react?
I don't think he did. No.
You don't think so? Because I'm telling you, he did.
Roger Lear?
Yes, he had one on it.
Okay. Oh, and that's when the guard was standing outside the building that he was guarding, and he would see craft come in night after night. And eventually other people came, and he had much, much better cameras, and was able to capture the non-human entities on at least two of these craft. He has grays, and he has the, they think it's a mantis type, but it looks like an avian. So maybe a mantis and an avian from different angles will all look the same. I don't know.
Perspective means a lot. Yeah.
No. Yeah. Some of the when they first did it and they hit the internet with all of this evidence, it was up for less than 12 hours and somebody pulled it all off. And a lot of the pictures were scrubbed. The films went through and changed, altered, and people who were putting them up were told, but not given an opportunity to put them back up, and somebody else was. Okay. The original films themselves are under lock and key. I know that. And there's two in the front pictures, and then there's a humanoid, and that would be me. I'm redheaded, then that is me on board. Not an avian or any of that. My hair was flaming red, and maybe I look like a bird. I don't know, but I wore a black jumpsuit, and I had flaming red hair, and I had it all pulled back, so it was like this. Okay, and I don't wear glasses on board. I don't need them, and I wear eye protectors, lenses, so I look black-eyed. And that is me. I'm on board. I'll show you the picture that Preston was able to pull out. He found it for me.
Well, this picture looked like Donald Duck to me.
They were messing with some of it. I'm telling you, the stuff that they put back out when
this
they
is,
all of it. Yeah.
I saw it initially, right away,
You did?
when it was first released.
Oh, wow.
And
Very cool.
and this has been analyzed in 6 different countries.
Yeah. One of
This
the pictures that I saw when it first came out was literally me in the seat with the ball above my head. Okay. And I'm on fire. I look like I'm pure light almost when that's going on. And so you can see some of the red on me and my black jumpsuit. And then you see this ball above my head. And photographically, it can come out weird looking, and you can paradola anything into that picture. But it's me with the ball above my head in the chair. And I dropped when I realized that they had a camera on us. I dropped the ball, and I was flying. I was literally in control of the craft at that point. I was hard flying at that moment, and that was 2008.
Yeah.
And,
well, before we get off too much on a tangent, can we get to the second half of Michael's question, which is about the fertilizer?
Yeah.
Yes, there was a bag of fertilizer because Betty had a garden at my grandparents' farm. I grew up across the street from them, and very large gardens, and the fertilizer was there for that reason. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
That isn't why they were followed, by the way.
No, it's not.
Not why. No.
Okay. Sorry. Here's another question about that case from Justin Sane. Says, I heard in one story that Barney had a handgun that he pulled from the car, not a tire iron. Can you ask about that?
Yes, it was a handgun. It was Betty's gun, actually.
Oh, good for Betty.
And yeah, and Barney decided to take it out of her drawer and put it into the trunk of the car when they began their trip. And then when they stopped, their first observational stop for this, to see the craft at Mount Cleveland picnic area north of Cannon Mountain, north of Franconia Notch by only about 4 miles. He took the gun out of the trunk because there were bears in the area and there were picnic barrels. He was walking the dog and he thought he would fire the gun if a bear came along to scare the bear off. So that's why he had the gun there. He had it originally because this was a spur of the moment trip. They hadn't, the bank was closed. They had to use the money that they had at home. And so he thought maybe they might have to sleep beside the road some night. And so he had a gun for protection.
All right, here's another interesting question. This is from C. And do you have any evidence of this, Kathleen? Is the government faking abductions?
I can't say. Maybe Dolly can say. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say that they are faking.
I know one guy
of them.
Yeah, I know one guy who was absolutely hypnotized and mind controlled at a military base in Southern California.
If you're a contactee and you have an on-the-ground encounter where you're not off the ground, that there's a craft on the ground and you're taken into the craft, and you start describing it as something that you would see from us militarily, but it's made to look like it, and then somebody comes after you with a syringe full of something, and then suddenly you go out, that's the military messing with you.
That sounds like it would be. Yes.
Yeah. And there are plenty of stories like that. We hear them all the time, that people have been milapped by these people. And
I've only worked with one individual who had that kind of experience.
Yeah. I haven't had a lot of cases personally, but I do believe it happens. Okay, here is another question for you, Kathleen, from Louis Molnar. Tell us about your opinion of disclosure, what you've seen over the years and how close we are. So it's a big question to unpack.
It is a big question. I like the idea of limited exposure and that information is coming out, that the whistleblowers are testifying under oath before Congress. I believe that that bill is being passed. I know I've heard that there's military pushback. They don't want the programs to continue, but Congress wants to know, and Congress is funding this. And Congress says they are in charge, not the military. The government is in charge. And, so it's that give and take. I really believe that we have the right as citizens of the world to know that we're being visited. We've been visited for a very long time, and that it is because of their concern about our bellicose behavior, about our the threat of destroying our planet through the atomic warfare, or the environmental concerns, the big companies who've said for years, "Oh, there's nothing wrong. We have no planet warming." There's been years and years of denial of many, many things. And most young people, I believe, know that we're being visited. So it would only be some people who would be upset about this, but if it's handled delicately and religious leaders are involved in this, to say that, no, these are not demons, the way we've been telling you forever.
Agreed.
I think we could have some limited disclosure.
I feel like truth sooner or later is going to come out no matter what, because it's truth.
Right. And I like the idea of moving on with disclosure, not just limited as they're doing now, but finally getting to the truth.
Yeah. All right, here's another good question from Audrey Miller. Question, Kathleen, are there common dreams that contactees share?
There are. Contactees have dreams of being taken to craft and interacting with these non-humans that seem too real to have been dreams. And the majority of experiencers have had this type of dreams. Sometimes they come back with evidence on their bodies and memories too.
Yep. Okay, I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to all of these questions, but we have at least time for one more. Let me see. There was one here I really thought was interesting. Yes. This is from Fun Talks TV. Question for Kathleen. If you had the chance to ask ET about any past activity on their part, what would you ask?
Oh my gosh.
You want to think about that?
Did you really plant our seed here, like you say? Do you come back periodically to check on our development and to upgrade our genome?
Yeah, I've got all kinds of questions. I have a million of them.
I do too.
We're actually beginning to run out of time, but I want to quickly show some of your books because you have so many really wonderful books that people need to check out. Here's the Alien Abduction Files. We've been talking about a couple of cases from there. Forbidden Knowledge. Are you working on another book, Kathleen?
I'm working on a survey right now, the Marden Barton survey on religious belief and extraterrestrial life. And anyone can take this. Anyone can take the first 25 questions. There are 50 in all. Please follow the instructions. If you don't follow the instructions, you're not going to be able to submit it. We need 100 more before we can have the results analyzed, hopefully by a PhD statistician we've been in contact with. And then we're going to publish our results. So wow. Dr. Barton has her doctorate, and I've worked with her for quite a few years now.
Very cool.
She's also an ordained minister.
What's the foundation for the questionnaire? Why the questionnaire? What are they sampling? In other words,
well, we have concerns about the religious people, particularly in the South, who are terribly frightened of all of this and believes that it is all demonic. There are some in the Pentagon too who have that attitude. And we want to be able to discuss all of this and to help people. Melanie is a psychotherapist and a minister. Well, she was a minister. She's not any longer. She's more spiritual now, like all of us.
Where can people get this survey or find it?
You go to my website at kathleen-marden.com, and you can find it right on the menu. If you're on Facebook, it's on my Facebook page too.
All right. Any last things you want to share with everyone before we have to say good night?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me back again. I hope everyone enjoyed this evening's show. And there's another big case that I would like to present.
We will do that
in the future.
Like when we in the show, you're going to stay so we can put you in the slot somewhere before we hang up. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Let me just say a quick thank you to all you folks who watched us tonight. All you folks who very generously gave your time and some funds. It means a lot. Thank you so much for the questions. We had a real good time. So happy you join us each week. Thank you, TCNN. Thank you, all of you. Heidi Hansen, you guys are amazing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It means a lot to know that we have such wonderful people watching and such wonderful support. So thank you, all you guys out there listening and watching.
Yes.
All right, Dolly.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to see us tonight in this beautiful September evening on Monday night. We will see you next week. I hope you live in joy and happiness. And please keep journals for yourself every day, no matter what. It's the best way to experience your life is to go back over it and think about it and munch it over. The best person to tell you the truth about yourself is you and what you experience. You've been listening to The Light Gate, and we're coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans at the United Public Radio Network at 107.7 FM and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 FM. Everyone, joy, peace, namaste. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you.